And joining me now is Paul Theron from Vestact.
Evening.
Good evening. How are you? What is that, Paul? I'm sorry. What is that?
No, well, I consulted my followers on Twitter whether I should wear this important, innovation, because I'm tired of being bald. I mean, who wants to be a bald 45-year-old?
And that suits you. It really. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of clients and a lot of new money coming to Vestact. I'm feeling confident about the prospects. So let's touch on something that you were very vocal on because it was very optimistic news with regards to Walmart in India. And India is suspending plans to open its $450 billion supermarket sector.
Yeah,
Walmart.
look, I'm always keen on stories that allow us to view our political and economic issues against the backdrop of the same problems that others have. So obviously in India, they first announced that they were going to allow foreign retailers to get involved in their business retail environment, which is a lot of mom and pop stores. And now, thanks to widespread political protest, they appear to have suspended this thing. So, I mean, what's interesting for me is that they've got the same kind of torturous politics. But I saw an interesting stat on the web. No, concentrate now, concentrate.
I'm just trying to figure out how many colors are in that wig. I think about 5.
So they basically 40% of all fresh produce that's produced in India rots because of the absence of a proper cold chain.
Yeah.
So, whilst I know it's very politically correct to talk about how much food gets wasted in America, where people have so much food and nobody eats it all, in India, it's not as though they don't have problems. So I think they need to, sober up like the rest of the world.
Of course, but it would have an impact on the existing retail supermarkets. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's touch on the Euro Summit. We've also got the ECB rate decision tomorrow. Is there going to be resolution finally, Paul?
Oh man, what happens now? We're trapped in that, joke world where if the market's up, the headline says, market firms on Euro optimism. And then if the market goes down, literally on the same day, 2 hours later, you're below the line, then everybody says, market softens on Euro fears. So it's kind of like become a terrible bad joke. We feel like we're trapped in a dream world. But now there's another summit. It's coming tomorrow. And people are saying, well, they're going to press for more fiscal union. Maybe they will. I think it's possible, It's just been a long-running saga, and I know that the French are keen, the Germans have a different story. I know, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
So it's Germany versus France, essentially.
But they're supposed to be the big friends at the core of the whole Euro project.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, Sarkozy and Merkel are thinking the same way on these issues. Man, I don't know, it's just too tricky to know. I suppose it's naive to expect too much. But sooner or later, this thing is going to get solved in a way that the market's happy with. So.
More and more news coming through from the banking sector. We keep on hearing about job losses. Citigroup, 4,500 jobs worldwide will be cut. That's 2% of its workforce.
Yes. No, look, we know that the only people who watch CNBC Africa during the day are people that actually work at banks. So maybe the time now is for them to turn off the set and go home before I say what I'm going to say next. But it really does appear that the issue is that banks can only get their capital returns back to market sensitive levels if they cut jobs, because they're not going to get anything out of the market in terms of regulatory relief or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm afraid Citibank, which is the main player over there in New York, they announced big layoffs, and I fear there are more to come. Very depressing story ahead of Christmas.
You have a hair that's out of place, may I? There we go.
Oh yes, no, thank you.
Paul Theron from Vestact joining us for Closing Bell, and I promise you won't be wearing this tomorrow.